Good morning. Today we're going to talk about turning obstacles into opportunities. I have a book called The Struggle Survival Guide that's about this topic, and we're going to cover some of that today. Hope you guys are having a great day. Wake up, get energized, let's get successful. So what is it to look at obstacles as opportunities, you may ask? Well, life is full of obstacles, right? For most people, this is one or more challenges in different aspects of their life. We set goals with enthusiasm, energetically take action to achieve them. Everything looks great for a while, then it happens. Setback. We've been stalled out, and suddenly we have no idea what to do. Things come to a grinding halt, and the world feels like it's going to stop on you. But to a particular type of person, this is the fun part. Obstacle becomes not so much of a stopping point as it does a challenge. It's an opportunity to discover something new about yourself or about the world you live in. Obstacles are what create growth and make life more enjoyable, believe it or not. It's a radical thought, I'm sure, but in my book, you're going to find a survival guide to get through those rough places. We'll start with a look at life and the kinds of obstacles that we face. We're also going to discover sometimes surprising benefits of an obstacle. From there, you'll find out how to take on obstacles in your life and turn them into opportunities. That's a mindset, and it's amazing. So if you're ready to look at things in a new way, you're going to be amazed at just how exciting the process actually is and how much fun it is once you learn. So the dictionary defines the word obstacle as a thing that blocks one's way or prevents or hinders progress. Okay. So when you hear the word, you might imagine an obstacle course. So as a little kid, you probably played on several of those. Might have even created your own, right, in the backyard. Your obstacle course might have involved a series of activities such as running or jumping or hopping, crawling, whatever. If you were ever in the military, for example, you've trained on the more grown-up versions of these courses, and they push your body to the absolute physical limit to get through to the other side. They never pause to consider the possibility of stopping. Think about it. They charge full speed ahead, and when they come to something blocking their progress to the finish line, they look at it as a challenge. The obstacle is a puzzle, something to get through or up or over until they're on the other side. So what's more, every obstacle becomes an opportunity to show off their physical prowess and their thinking skills to their friends and their peers and their parents. It's a way of saying, watch me do this. What is it about growing up that teaches us that obstacles can stop our dreams in their tracks? That blows me away. As children, when the course becomes difficult, we very rarely walk off after giving up. We might skip an obstacle or go around it, but more often than not, the child comes back later and tries that particular challenge and repeatedly until they get past it. Relentless Drive. That's another book that we talk about some pretty cool stuff. They might watch their friends go at it and see how they go through it. They might ask for help to get around it. Doing naturally what we have to relearn as adults. In the adult world, obstacles aren't always so clear cut, though. They take on many forms, and they seem to really kind of absolutely be everywhere, honestly. At some point, we get burned out from trying, overwhelmed with the sheer work that it takes to be involved in getting through. And really, we're eager to take the excuse to just walk away, honestly. Obstacles look like too much work. And regardless of the payoff, right, we're just no longer interested in pushing through it. It's easier just to quit. So, some of the examples that I have in the book are like your boss asks for a project to be on his desk by the end of the day, but a meeting was just called regarding a different matter and you're short on time. But skipping the meeting is going to let down your team. Okay. Or you've been asked over to a friend's house on a weekend day. And it sounds great, but you need to bring something, some kind of food. And your kids have soccer in the morning and you have laundry and you don't have time to go to the store, much less make something. And you just really would rather cancel than have to deal with that. Or the babysitter called the last minute and can't make it, so you can't go on date night. You've been planning this date night out with your spouse all week and you really just need some time to reconnect, and that gets stopped. Most of our challenges come when we feel like we don't have enough resources or enough time to do the things that we want to do and also need to do, right? So That's kind of where you just kind of have to really think about that. And you always think one step ahead. And it's not being a negative person or thinking negatively, it's just the what if, right? If your wife is the breadwinner in the family and husband is stay at home and the wife gets sick and she can't work, what do? Right? You got to have some kind of a plan, whether it be saving money so that you can sustain a certain amount of time until that person gets healthy, or you have a side hustle or something along that line. Do you see what I'm saying? Frustration builds, especially when we get stuck in a cycle of trying to please everyone all the time, forgetting that our own goals are just a legitimate thought. And yes, necessary as anyone else's. Okay. So there was a study where the participants were asked to list the challenges that they faced regularly. And honestly, here's the list that they came up with. See if they sound familiar. Number one, tension at work. Number two, worrying about their health. Number three, not getting it right, whatever that is. Number four, not enough hours in the day. I've got a plan for that, by the way. Time blocking, time management. Problems with the boss or coworkers. Next is lack of funds to cover basic needs or go on vacation. And number five, demand of their children's schedule on them. And then they threw in some other being overcommitted, lack of energy, and needing to be at two places at once. So if any of this sounds familiar, chances are you can probably come up with an additional item or two that are bothering you right now. Think about it. To understand obstacles better, we classify them in three categories. Okay. External obstacles, internal obstacles, and habitual obstacles. And we're going to take a look at each one of these in more detail in the next segment. Okay. So let's look at each of these in more detail. First, we're going to look at external obstacles. These are the things that come at us that are outside of our control. Okay, they include things like natural disasters, the economy, catastrophic health issues, physical limitations, the people around you, right? Boss, coworker, family. Okay. This is also a thing called constants and variables. I talk about those in some of my training classes. The constants are basically everything that you are consistent that you have to do, right? You have to get up, you have to go to work, you have to get up and get the family ready, you have to pay the bills, you have to wash the laundry. All those are the constants. The variables are the stuff that will direct you away from that stuff, right? Which is variables are the weather, the economy, the government, war. Um, you see what I'm saying? Stuff that is throws that you really can't stop, but you could plan for, but they can also come up out of nowhere. Okay. So, but we're going to look at it this in these three ways, which are the obstacles that are external, internal, and habitual. Okay. While it may feel odd to group your family or coworkers in as an obstacle, hear me out here. Whenever someone makes a demand upon your energy or your time, they can be that can be perceived as a obstacle. Okay, especially if they're not the type of person to take no for an answer. Okay, so your boss is a great example here because you're not only the one that can make rigorous, he can be the one that makes the rigorous demands on you. Okay, sometimes even unreasonable demands, but you might feel you're not in a position to exert your own control in the situation. So note that under health, what's being referred to here is a catastrophic health issue. This only relates to the things outside of your control, like a car accident that wasn't your fault or a diagnosis that comes out of nowhere. Okay. Other health concerns we'll address in a second. Now, sometimes what's blocking us from what is comes from within. What makes these hurdles particularly interesting is the fact that we have some measure of control over them. Okay. This doesn't mean winning out over every one of these particular challenges is necessary. And it's not going to be easy. We truly are our own worst enemies when it comes to this. And frequently, these challenges come with a lot of baggage and even more to work with to deal with them. Okay. These obstacles are like financial challenges, not having enough money or handling unexpected expenses or conflicts at work, right? Difficulty in moving up the corporate ladder, dissatisfaction with your job, or just not feeling your job anymore. Health issues we have control over, like weight problems, depression, stuff like that. And then relationship issues, difficult spouse, difficult parents, difficult kids, right? Those are fall into this category. And again, while these various challenges might seem insurmountable at the moment, they aren't. Okay. Your financial issues might be able to be addressed by adjusting your spending or finding a new job or even, worst case scenario, file for bankruptcy. That's what it's there for. Not advocating it, just saying that's what that's there for. Right? Conflict at work can generally be worked through, honestly. Or in the worst case scenario, you might find it's time to move on to another position entirely or even a new company. Listing health issues here makes it sound like it's your fault for being ill, and that's not what I'm talking about. Even recognizing that your genetics play a role in things like diabetes, heart disease, and weight issues, you have to acknowledge that the challenges associated with these health issues are something you can do or work with. In the end, even something like depression, touchy subject, I know, which can wildly get out of control and becomes a challenge, you can do something about it. Whether you pursue therapy or medication or some combination of both of those, right? For this reason, these kinds of health issues are listed as an internal obstacle rather than external, right? Now, the last one is habitual obstacles. And I'm sure you probably never heard of this, but it's a thing. These are those obstacles that you wind up confronting repeatedly because you probably a procrastinator. Are you having like a difficulty in managing your emotions when you're around maybe your ex? Do you get into confrontations with your boss all the time or friends? Habitual obstacles are particularly nasty ones and they need to be weeded out. So simply because they're so ingrained into your psyche usually, while most of these things might be considered internal obstacles, they're addressed somewhat differently because there's a component here requiring the breaking of an old habit and adopting a new one. So where does that leave us? Well, by now it's fairly obvious we're facing any number of obstacles in our life. Some of these are decidedly out of our control, but most of them are things that we can do something about. It's the doing something that feels daunting, right? Just like anything else, taking action. You want to lose weight, it's the start that's the hardest part. So, in going back to the example of the child running the obstacle course, the reason the child runs it straight forward, they're eager to be rewarded. To them, this is everything. In defeating the tasks laid out before them, the child feels a sense of accomplishment, just like we do as adults. They prove something to themselves and their peers. Running the obstacle course, they have become stronger, smarter, and feel more capable. In the next chapter, we're going to look at the different benefits of the obstacles you're facing now as an adult. And you might be surprised to find out that the rewards you're seeking aren't really all that different than the things you really sought out as a kid. And the obstacle course you conquered was one of your own making. So if you're sick, this is something to kind of think about. If you've ever seen a chick, a baby chick, trying to hatch out of an egg, what's your first instinct? You might want to help it because it looks like it's struggling because the process is incredibly slow. Right? It starts out with a little tapping from the inside the edge, right? Eventually, you see like this little hairline crack, a tiny little hole. You might catch a glimpse of the beak desperately working at the shell, parted like in between rests, in between taps. And if you're like me, you think to yourself, that nature has done something way wrong to make that little dude work that hard because the process is hard and laborious. and the bird is just like this little tiny thing, and the baby's like trying to frantically like live. And so when you think about this in your mind, you reach out and you break open the shell, and guess what happens? The chick dies. See, what we don't realize is the benefit of that obstacle for that baby chick. So, in the case of the baby chick, their very act of hatching is what stirs its blood inside the body. And the process of tapping and fighting to get free is what builds the strength for the baby chicken to survive outside of the shell. Without the struggle, the bird will never force enough air into its lungs or raise the heart rate enough to survive once it gets out. Go figure. I mean, it's kind of a odd example, but that's exactly what happens. That baby's first obstacle is our life or death. So obstacles are what helps us grow. Sometimes what helps us live. If the life's examples were always easy, we'd never reach out and be our best selves. Everybody would be the same. Obstacles make us stronger, teach us lessons, and make us more persistent. So listen on to find out some of the benefits of obstructions and how you can use them to reach your full potential. That's why we listen to these things. I listen to self-help stuff. I talk to people that give me ideas and help me overcome obstacles. Obstacles teach us things we wouldn't know otherwise. So when we meet with an obstacle, our reaction tells the world about who we are. Okay. I have this saying, and I'm sure it's not mine, but I've used it for years and years. The problem is usually not the problem, it's the reaction to the problem that's the problem. It's here where we're seeing it either our best or our worst. Okay. Are you courageous? Do you, if you're, are you made of steel, or do you hide under the table when confronted with trouble? Or do you run away? These are the sometimes hard truths about us that we can only learn when we're put in that situation. Here we either prove our muster or we learn where we need to work. Had we never been challenged, we would never have the opportunity to know who we really are. So we got to figure out the important stuff. Once we have learned these truths about ourselves, we know what needs to be worked on. Most of the time, people are too busy telling everybody else what they need to work on. Right? But feeling like you're not very brave, do you cringe from confrontation? Well, obstacles are what's going to give you the skills to create better versions of yourself. Nothing teaches patience like an opportunity to be patient. Nothing will instruct you in bravery better than the moment you have to stand up to what scares you. These are the important pieces of who we are inside. And without the obstacles, you never know. You would have never had the opportunity to work on these things. So obstacles teach us persistence. We learn very little when things go smoothly, right? The first effort yields the results we want right away. There's never any cause to try it again. We start thinking everything should involve immediate gratification. That's a problem. And that nothing should take any kind of personal effort. Obstacles teach us how to try again. And when they teach us how to try that over and over and over, when we have to expend the effort to get past the blockage, we find ourselves learning how to become diligent. We learn nothing comes without a cost. And should everything just be given to us? We learn the value of hard work. Obstacles teach us the value of an exceptional work ethic and how to keep going when things get tough. Got to be more creative in setting goals. We frequently set out a path we'd like to follow. Like a roadmap is a great thing to have. The occasional obstacle has a way of really forcing us to be flexible. It's like these obstacles that teach us how to be more creative in our approach by forcing us to think outside the box. We exercise portions of our brain that we might not be using as often as we like. We become more inclined to have brilliant ideas and put them to work in ways that we normally wouldn't. We consider new alternatives and explore new roads and new ideas we might have never gone down before. So without obstacles, we never would be near as creative as we are. nor would we travel such exciting places, mentally or physically. Okay. So we learn about what's important. See, it's really hard to see the forest from the trees sometimes. When we've been working toward a goal for a long time, sometimes we start to forget what we're working for or what the goal itself was to begin with. Or it becomes uninteresting because it's too hard. Never mind. I'm good. This is too hard. I'll change my target. We might not even all be interested in it anymore, but we're pressing on because it's there. When challenged through an obstacle, we very often are given a chance to reevaluate how important these goals are. If we find we're not really interested in fighting for these things anymore, then it becomes much easier to just quit. The obstacle we're ready to challenge is the one standing in front of what we really want. Without hindrance, we'd never have the opportunity to find out just what's worth fighting for. Okay, obstacles force us to narrow our focus. Where's your focus at normally? More often than not, we have our eyes on the prize. The goal becomes the critical thing in our lives. And we stop paying attention to the journey and getting there. Obstacles bring our focus in closer. When we're forced to stop, we're likewise forced to examine. We're forced to examine what the very next step is, and the action after that, and the action after that. We learn how to really pay attention to what we're doing and to narrow our focus down to the there and now and what needs to happen next. This is where we learn the art of savoring the moment, they call it. Without obstacles, we frequently lose focus. And in doing that, lose out on the lessons to be learned in honing the details and exploring what's right in front of us. We are truly thankful for what comes easily, right? That's you learn gratitude that way. When we have to fight for what we have, and every accomplishment is a freaking just a knockdown, drag out journey, taking all this profound effort, we come to really appreciate what we have when it's all over. We learn the absolute gratitude that comes from pushing the envelope and having to earn what we have. The lessons don't stop there. We start to appreciate the efforts of those around us. We understand their struggles better and have more compassion for what's going on. We're more grateful when they choose to make us a part of their journey and appreciate the gifts that they have to share with us. Gratitude makes us better people, right? In a soul edifying way. We would never know had the obstacle not allowed us to learn and learn about each other and help each other. So, what does that do? That makes us stronger. In order to build muscle, right? You have to use it. Ask a bodybuilder, and he will tell you how the process of changing their body to be stronger requires not just effort, but pain. The same thing happens when we meet with an obstacle. When we meet a challenge and dig deep to surpass it, it becomes more stable emotionally. We do. We become more stable emotionally. We gain mentality. We gain mental agility. We become stronger in ways that we never thought possible. Right? Even our physical bodies benefit from the work of growing as an individual. Right? We become surer of ourselves. We start sleeping better. We take better care of ourselves. In short, isn't a part of our body or our mind that doesn't see a direct benefit from the fight to succeed. Obstacles give us the opportunity to create a better version of ourselves. How often do you think about what you can give back to the world? Okay. Obstacles encourage us to see outside ourselves. So, when confronted with an obstacle, we're given the opportunity to just not learn something new for our own sake, but something that's a lesson and a challenge that we can now teach people how to overcome it. So, it makes you more valuable, right? If you've gone through something terrible, you now are certified in that terrible, which gives you the knowledge to go out and help somebody else that is about to or is going through that same thing because you've been through it. So it makes you more valuable. So when confronted with obstacles, we're given the opportunity not just to learn something new about ourselves, but we can take the lesson this challenge provides and use them to teach others. When we allow others to benefit from our experience, we become mentors, coaches, and friends and enrich the lives of all the people around us. Obstacles enable us to give back to our orbit or our community to make the world a better place. Okay, so obstacles help us to find the meaning in what we do. While the challenge is something daunting, our perception of the obstacle is where we find the deepest truth. Okay, this is a challenging concept for some people. Obstacles, especially those that wind up stopping us entirely in our tracks. We feel such like failures on the surface. We tend to get caught up in our emotions and we can't always see where the particular struggle held anything useful. It's when we take the focus off the failure and ask ourselves what is good in this moment that we have to discover the meaning behind what's going on. When this happens, the obstacle becomes the opportunity to discover the true meaning and the purpose for which we've been born. Obstacles bring the sweetest rewards, big or small. The object we earn from doing an easy task versus the object we earn by the sweat and the blood and the grit is just different. Pushing through an obstacle to make a goal makes the accomplishment that comes from getting there that much better. These are the rewards we cherish. Without the barrier, we'd never have the opportunity to experience the victory in itself. So we discover inner peace because of that. It's the external obstacle that really flattens us, knocks us on our ass. When the world is spiraling out of control and we feel like we can no longer stand up under the whirlwind, we eventually have to learn how to let go of that. And when we have accomplished these things, this is the moment we have attained inner peace. Obstacles are the opportunity to embrace humility. Very little of that going on lately. And let's just let go of things that we have no control over. What does that do? That frees you up to focus on things that you can change. Obstacles show us how to change for the better. With any obstacle, external or internal, we're given a chance to assess how we feel about the world. It's in these moments that we're forced to stop so that we can take stock and re examine who we really are. While typically it's significant obstacles like health diagnosis, right, that inspire this kind of soul searching. However, anytime we're challenged by something difficult, we have the opportunity to examine our lives and to decide whether we're happy with what we're doing and where we're going. More than just deciding whether or not to continue on our current path, that allows us to determine whether we like the person we are. And while on that path, do we want to change something about it? It also allows us to choose whether being on that path is benefiting us or keeping us from something more substantial. Obstacles give us the opportunity to change, not just what we're doing, but where we're at inside. We're better prepared for the future when this happens. In the end, the obstacles teach us how to face other hurdles. So as we travel through life, it's going to be a reoccurring theme. There will come a time when you'll be forced to confront the most profound obstacle of all time, the ones that connected with humility or morality and even your morality. The methods you've used to face other barriers become your teachers now and how to proceed into the next important phase of your life. Obstacles prepare you for your future, regardless of where you're going. When this happens, even death cannot frighten you anymore. With so many benefits, you can now see how obstacles are not just something to endure, but are something, in fact, to embrace. Right? Your best self awaits when you do this. Now, now's the time to turn the obstacle into an opportunity. What does that mean? Well, here's where you're going to put the rubber to the road, as they say. So by now, you figured out that the obstacle in your life might have some benefit to you. You might even be ready to embrace this challenge. If so, it's not maybe this next chapter will help you to turn the obstacles into opportunities. I'm going to talk about several tips on how to get started. And remember, this is not a definitive list. As you listen, you can come up with your own ideas. Be sure to jot them down while you're at it. We're going to find opportunities everywhere. And when you reach this point, the world will never look the same. So what are we talking about? Well, first, you gotta decide what kind of experience you want to have. Before you can even do anything, you have to start with your own attitude. By making a conscious decision to embrace the challenge, you're readying yourself mentally for a positive experience. Now you're ready to seize that opportunity. Okay, then you have to look at the reality. Don't flinch from the obstacle. Burying your head in the sand isn't going to get you past this point, nor will it allow you to see the opportunity as they present themselves. Take a long, hard look until you have a clear picture of exactly what you're facing right now. Just what kind of obstacle are you looking at? How extensive is it? What were the actions that led to it? Only close examination will you find the opportunity buried within that. You got to stay in the moment. See, at this point, it becomes very easy to wallow in the past. While understanding the root cause is important, spending time trying to assign blame or figure out all those should haves is going to do nothing more than stall you and make you feel miserable. Here's where it becomes essential to look at where you are right now and what task is waiting in front of you. What opportunity is staring you in the face that you might not have seen if you hadn't kept looking? Something else that it's hard to do, but you got to lose the panic, man. When the obstacle first hits, the last thing you have time to do is panic. Keeping a cool head will enable you to find the action lending itself to opportunity. Now, it's not to say you won't experience a slew of emotions and a lot of thoughts coming at you at once. You're just not going to allow them to dictate your actions. You've got to acknowledge what's going on and that you're feeling okay. Even the bad emotions serve a purpose, okay? Never deny what you're feeling. That's not what I'm saying. There's something worse than drowning your emotions or pretending they don't exist. Everything is a part of the life experience. So, whatever the obstacle has brought up, remind yourself it's all a part of the whole. Part of discovering the opportunity before you lie in the bed and are able to wallow in it, you got to be able to see it clearly. You can't do that. If you're pretending what makes up the part of the obstacle isn't there, that's a bad deal. You have to step back. It's not to say that you shouldn't know when to keep your distance. Once those emotions are acknowledged, it's time to let go. Wallowing in them is only going to keep you from being able to move forward. Once you have a clear head, you're able to act. The opportunity will become clearer and you'll have a better idea of what you need to do and what needs to happen next. So I want you to change your perspective. Okay. Stepping back leads right into the next item on the list, a shift in how you're viewing the obstacle. If you're still having problems with being able to detach, here's where the ability to see things from a perspective of someone else becomes especially valuable. Ask yourself, as an outsider would see the obstacle, how would they react? What opportunities might they see that you're not seeing? Now, this is something that not a lot of people do, because they're embarrassed, they don't know how, it's not cool, I don't know. But when all else fails, it's time to go straight for a source. Find a mentor. A mentor will be able to answer the questions that you just put to yourself in much more detail. They have the advantage of having been there, done that, and can offer you wisdom and knowledge. They see the opportunities because they've been there before and likely can help you with a plan of attack for pursuing yours. Okay. So people ask about resources. It's not just the Boy Scouts who need to be prepared. Okay. It's impossible to manage an obstacle when you lack what you need to move forward. So you require resources. Is there knowledge you don't have? Or do you need to carve out some time so that you can address the opportunity as it presents itself? Okay. And it's funny because I experienced that. I was thinking back when I was writing this about a time that I experienced that. And the perfect example is when my mom was diagnosed with cancer, right, in the stomach. All of a sudden, guess what I did? Prior to that, I had no interest in knowing any of that. After the diagnosis, I was an expert. I dug, I researched, I read medical papers, I watched YouTube videos. All of a sudden, I was looking for a solution to that obstacle. And it made me smarter about that subject on how to handle the obstacle. Could we overcome it or could we make that obstacle a little easier while we were going through it? Okay. So you got to accept it's going to have time and take time. Nothing worthwhile happens quickly. Okay. The obstacle very likely becomes as a result of something that's been building up over time. The process of unraveling it is likewise going to take a certain amount of effort. So give yourself time to work through what needs to be done. Also, keep in mind it's easier to seize opportunities when you've got the time to explore them as they come. Too often, the opportunity is brushed aside simply because there wasn't room in your schedule to take advantage of it. Okay. Now, you can also change the definition. What does that mean? Obstacles will try to define the world for you. They start with the word failure and go into impossible and every other negative variation in between. So, in order to get your head back in the game, you need to start with changing the definition from the word obstacle on out. Think instead of opportunity, learning experience, possibility. See where I'm going with that? Focus on the can rather than the can't. There's nothing more pointless than wasting time on what can't be done. If you've already proven the path you were trying to take is a dead end, it's time to start asking what can happen here instead. This is much this is much like changing the definition in the previous moment that we were talking about. Remember, when you ask this question, you start seeing the possibilities rather than the roadblocks. This is truly an obstacle becomes an opportunity. Except some things are going to be uncomfortable. By their very nature, obstacles suck and they make us uncomfortable. The sooner you accept this as a simple fact of life, the quicker you'll be able to focus what needs to be done. Opportunity is never going to wait for you to be ready. I promise. You need to choose to be prepared, just like at a hurricane. Okay? So be smart, not hopeful. You guys ever heard of the SMART goals? A SMART goal is one that's specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time based. Hope tends to want solutions without a plan. Being smart enables you to act when faced with the obstacle, which leads us to positive action and opportunities you might not have had otherwise. How about some peer support? We were talking about mentors, right? Even with mentors, the obstacles you face might seem pretty freaking intimidating. The support system is there for you to be your cheerleader, your sounding board, and company for the road, man. Your shotgun, your drinking buddy, whatever. They'll help you spot the opportunities and be there for you to put in the work required to seize that moment. You can always list the options also. To avoid making the mistake of doing the first thing that occurs to you and acting against the obstacle, make a list of every possible course of action and then reevaluate your choice. Ask what has the highest probability of success and will lead to the clearest opportunity. Then act before the opportunity slips away. Right? When I go into companies and help people rebuild their businesses, it's funny because the conversations are usually somewhat similar, whether it be a salesperson or a business owner. Man, we don't have enough money. We don't. Our budget's not big enough. I'm not making enough money to make this work. Well, what I tell people is a you don't have a money problem. You have a people problem. because people have the money. If you own a business, there has to be a transaction. I have to solve a problem for somebody to give them for them to give me money. Okay? So look at that as the obstacle. Money follows problem solved. Well, you're not talking to enough people, which, right? Because you're not making enough money. Anyway, that's another episode. It might seem to you to be asking more questions before you make an adequate list of options is the right course of action. Sometimes the hardest thing is knowing what you don't know. So you got to explore the gaps in your knowledge. Write down the questions, and when you're done, write down the questions those questions raised. And when you're finished, go hunting for the answer. You'll be surprised at how many opportunities you'll see just in following the simple process. And lastly, just think. Sounds easy, but man, there's sometimes not a lot of that going on. When you've gathered information, it's time to put it together and to find the solution and hopefully some new opportunities. So here's where you're going to want to apply both critical and creative thinking. Use the power of brainstorming sessions, maybe with your mentor or your peers, to consider even the silliest solution. You'll be amazed what's going to spark the best ideas. And don't freaking overcomplicate things. Okay. I don't know if you've ever seen this thing. It's called a Rube Goldberg machine. This is a machine or device that its main goal is to make a straightforward task as complicated as possible. Right? It's really kind of goofy and outlandish, but while most people don't go quite that far in dealing with obstacles, we tend to overcomplicate things where we don't need to. Look for some simple solutions first, the obvious opportunities. Sometimes you just need they need to be right in front of you, right? And sometimes the answer you need is right in front of you. Remember, the problem's not the problem, it's how you react to the problem that's usually the problem. Try new things. If you're still not sure what actions to take to surmount the obstacle, experiment to see what works. Opportunity is found in unexpected places sometimes. This kind of exploration has a way of leading you in the right direction that you may have never have anticipated. The point here is to move past the obstacle any way possible. Remember, even if you fail, you've learned something new from the experience that now you can pass on to other people. That is a positive. You got to realize that detours aren't dead ends. While most obstacles can look pretty daunting, you'll rarely find one that stops the process completely. Think of them as detours rather than dead ends. Just because you're there doesn't mean your journey's over. Even if the action might stop at this point, you still have opportunities waiting to be explored. Anticipate disasters. What can go wrong? Well, figure it out. Obstacles come when you're not prepared for the outcome. Asking yourself what's the worst thing that can happen, you can get prepared for the obstacle that lies ahead. And if you're already blocked, use the knowledge gained from this roadblock to prepare for the next one. Next, you got to kind of forget the rule book because there isn't one. There's the old way, and then there's the way that's going to work. When obstacles arise, it's the time to quit doing the same old shit. After all, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, right? This is the time to be bold in taking innovative actions. Opportunity thrives in this environment. On a side note, I want to talk about attitude. And while you already know a positive attitude is going to help you see the obstacle as an opportunity, a negative one will blind you to the possibilities. When you get caught up in assigning blame or negativity, you're going to see past where you are. Seeking sympathy is just as bad as it contains a component of dwelling in the past that entirely squashes forward momentum. With this in mind, decide at the start on a positive outlook and don't allow the negative so much to even get a grip or a foothold. And then you got to make sacrifices. In the world of writing, there's a phrase where an author, I have found this out writing books, might be asked to kill their darlings. I was told that a lot. What this refers to isn't cold-blooded murder as it sounds, but rather than the removal of a favorite phrase that you use over and over. This happens when that perfectly crafted sentence really doesn't have any place in the story. This also happens in chasing any kind of a goal. We get caught up in a certain detail that turned out to be a roadblock later on, keeping us from success. At these junctures, the only option that you have is to let go of what's holding you back. It's never going to be easy. I'm not saying that. In fact, it can fucking suck and it's painful. But when you realize that what's keeping them is what blocks the opportunity waiting on the other side of the obstacle, it becomes a lot easier to let it go. And something else that's near and dear to my heart, got to express gratitude. Often the obstacle itself is so overwhelming that we forget to be thankful for the opportunity that we've been given to overcome it. You're going to go, what? As silly as that sounds, expressing this gratitude about this obstacle creates a shift towards opportunity thinking versus obstacle thinking. It's part of the process. You got to protect your relationships as well. Roadblocks have a way of eating up all your time. Don't create obstacles in your relationships while dealing with the problems that have cropped up. And it's going to hurt meeting other goals. Take the time out from time to time to call somebody, say hello, right? We get caught up in this, oh, nobody ever calls me. Hey, look in the mirror. Enjoying the opportunity to spend time with those who mean the most to you in your life is important. And those obstacles will be there when you get back, I promise. Don't forget to breathe or to act. We're wired in one of three responses in a crisis, right? Fight, flight, or freeze up. When we hit obstacles, if you found yourself frozen in an activity like crouch down, hunker down, it's time to take a deep breath and regain control over your freaking situation. Once you've worked through the problem using other tips from this podcast or from my book, it's time to take a last step, which nobody ever takes. I don't care what they start. It's action. That's the first step. Intentions are good and well, but success and opportunity only come from those who take action. You grow. In the end of all this, you grow. The final lessons can be summed up in a single word. Obstacles allow us to grow. Here's where you discover courage and self-confidence. You cultivate the qualities that you admire in others about commitment and resilience and optimism. You gain discipline and learn lessons you'd never learn anywhere else. And the key here is an attitude of being ready to become more than you've ever thought possible, and the ability to see the opportunity in the obstacle. I promise you're ready to move forward, and life looks freaking amazing from here. I'm excited for you. Flipping the negative into the positive, you're rewriting the script. No longer are obstacles something to be feared. You're ready to embrace the challenge that whatever that obstacle holds, paving the way for new growth and thousands of possibilities. So, in conclusion here, hopefully by now you've learned not only how to survive life's struggles, but how to thrive as well. Obstacles have become opportunities. You're moving forward instead of feeling stalled out, and you see the possibilities that life has in store, right? So remember, whether you meet this eventual success or whether you come to the realization that this goal wasn't as viable as you thought it was, and accepting the outcome frees you up for the next adventure, right? Even the football player who fumbles the ball, at some point, he's got to get his head out of his ass and quit rehashing that play if he ever intends on getting back into the game again. There comes a time to let go of the past, win or lose, and see what the future has in store for you. Here's the opportunity shining freaking right in front of your face, just waiting for you to choose to take action and close the book on the old story so that you can begin the new story. So is it going to be hard? Hell yeah. Of course it is. It's going to be freaking really hard. But as you've already found out, the truly worthwhile things don't come from the easy stuff. The difference lies in you. With a fresh attitude and a positive outlook, you're stronger and more capable than you've ever been. You're ready for that next obstacle and you're prepared to turn that freaking thing upside down. So now, when obstacles come at you, look at them positively, look at them as an opportunity, and take action. Love you guys. Be safe. Take care. Sell a bunch. Find somebody and say something nice to them. See you next time.
You've been listening to the Productive, Not Busy podcast. Please hit the subscribe and notification of new episodes button and visit us on social media like Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok for bonus content.